Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of Nice Weekend for a Murder by Max Allan Collins, performed by Dan John Miller. For Ed Gorman, best friend Mallory ever had. Author's note: Mohonk Mountain House is, of course, a real place. The Mohonk Mystery. Chapter 1. New York is a great place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. And it wasn't that great a place to visit either, this time around. When you make your living as a writer, at least as a writer of books, whether fiction or nonfiction, or both, you must be resigned to the fact that occasional trips to New York City are a necessary evil. New York remains the hub of the publishing world, and if you don't go in now and then to remind your agent that you are more than a faceless voice attached to a bad phone connection, and to have long lunches with editors who must be similarly reminded, then you might as well have stayed in Iowa. I might as well have stayed in Iowa. The two editors of mine I lunched with, for two respective houses, were glad to see me and had a lot of wonderful things to say about how nicely some of their other writers were doing. My books, unfortunately, weren't doing all that well. Oh, there'd been a flurry of activity when one of them sold to TV, and we even landed a book club sale. But a sale to paperback remained elusive, and nobody was very optimistic, including me. And then my agent made my day. In the Clint Eastwood sense, that is. He had just read the 400-page change of pace manuscript I'd sent him a few weeks before, the book that would change my career, my breakthrough book. "Mallory, in good conscience," he said, "I can't even advise reworking this. It'd be a waste of bond paper. Put it in the drawer and try again." My agent and I went way back, almost 10 years. One of my teachers at a summer writers' conference had liked my first suspense novel well enough to write me a letter of introduction to this well-thought-of, if hard-nosed agent, who had a stable of top-flight mystery writers. A hard, round ball of a man, J. Krieger was renowned for his lack of tact. As Kurt Clark once said, "J. Krieger thinks tact is something you put on the teacher's chair." I'd never run into this side of J. Krieger, not full blast anyway. He always treated me kindly, if patronizingly. He had taken me on as a client based upon the manuscript I submitted to him way back when, thinking I was a promising kid. Trouble was, 10 years later, at 35 years of age, I was still a promising kid to him. If I was still a kid, why were my temples turning gray? So I fired him. He seemed surprised. He was a guy who landed million-dollar contracts for people, after all. Not for me. He sat at his big desk in his little walk-down office on West End Avenue and looked, for a moment, like someone had punched him in his considerable stomach. But he got over it quickly, handing me my thick manuscript with one hand and extending the other, offering it in a handshake, without standing, though he seemed sincere when he wished me the best of luck. Now I was sitting on a bus, feeling like I was on my way to my draft physical. Anyway, that was the last bus ride I could remember being this depressed on. Of course, on that trip, I hadn't been sitting next to a beautiful young woman, which was certainly an improvement over the naive Iowa farm boy I'd been sitting by then, a red-headed hick who was excited about getting a chance to shoot some gooks. He had pronounced it gucks, actually, but I didn't bother correcting him. Somebody else no doubt would. A gook, maybe. But all of that was years ago. We'd both been to Vietnam, that naive farm boy and me, and only slightly less naive Iowa farm boy myself, come to think of it. I, at least, had made it back. And after several years of bumming around, in this job and that one, and the requisite bout with drugs, Haight-Ashbury style, I had ended up going home again, to Iowa, Thomas Wolfe's advice notwithstanding, where I took in some GI Bill college and pursued my life's dream of being a writer, specifically a mystery writer. And the dream had come true. Half a dozen books later, and here I was, a published publishing writer who had moved out of his house.